Let us bring the City of Spartanburg City Council meeting to order. We're going to stand for a moment of silence and then be led by the Pledge of Allegiance. I do, in the meanwhile, while we're standing in the moment of silence, there was a shooting in Greenville this afternoon. 2 police officers were hit. Just pray for those families. I think they are fine. But the little boys that were killed in a bike accident up Asheville Highway, please keep that family in prayer, in your thoughts. Thank you. Let's adjust our phones, cell phones, please silence them. Mayor Pro Tem, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Again, let's be mindful of our digital devices, making sure we silence them. Before I go to item 3, I do want to introduce our interim city attorney, Mr. Max Hyde. He used to sit here, well, not here at the old City Hall as a council member. So welcome on, Max. Thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting to work with us. Thank you, sir. Item 3, approval of the minutes for the March 23rd, 2026 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. Item 4, approval of the agenda for the April 13th, 2026 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. We have public comment. And the way this works, guys, just come up and give us your name. We have your address here. Just repeat your name just so we make sure we have the right person. You have 2 minutes after you give your name and start. The city clerk will start the timer, and we're pretty strict with those 2 minutes. Thank you. Chris Mathis.
Yes, sir. Good to see you again, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to see you.
I'm back here because of the dog park and some other things. Thank you very much. Y'all done a great job. We got that back on. We appreciate it. But we do have some other concerns. Kathy Werber did a great job, $150,000 worth of stuff. The grass we had out there is not there anymore. The fill dirt we had in there is gone. We need some stuff. We need more maintenance. We have not had to get grass cut this year, I think, maybe once. And it's getting, I'd say about right here at the ankle. So we need to get that because of the snakes in the area. We would like to keep the water on if we can. I don't really understand the principle of this, but I do understand from talking with the staff that we have talked to with the city and parks, you're more concerned about the water situation and how much water is being run. Okay, I understand that. We have no problem helping you guys out, but I understand the budget is $5,000 a year. It has been for 12 years. I don't understand why this park has now doubled in size, almost triple, and we still don't have another dog park on the west side. Now, please understand, this park is also known nationwide. Let's be proud of it. I'm proud of it. That's why I'm up here. I'm scared to death of public speaking. Okay, I'm used to talking to 1,000 people in front, whatever. But at this point, I'm nervous talking to you guys if you haven't noticed. Let's see what else I got on this notes. We'll need a little bit more maintenance, more grass, et cetera. Also, let's change the subject for just a second on one other thing. One thing you're missing out on is convention trade. Okay, that's what I do for a living, and I have been doing it for 35 years. Okay, you're missing out on how much money on the table. Convention Center in Greenville is making plenty of money, but that thing was built in 1957. They renovated back in the early 2000s. They're still making money, but they're not planning on doing anything else. We have an opportunity to make time. We have the baseball during the summer. Wouldn't y'all like to have something in the fall and winter? Continue on making money and keep the hotels busy. When they did the, the Bassmasters, y'all missed out on $9 million for 3 days. 3 days. Okay?
All right. Thank you, sir.
I have another one too.
We appreciate your
I
time.
have 2 parts. And there were 2 letters.
2 letters?
I sent 2 emails. So I have another one on bridges.
We only get 1 public comment at a time.
Okay, that's fine. But the only thing I'm gonna say about bridges, Let's
Thank
light
you.
them up a little bit.
Thank you,
Let's
sir.
make Spartanburg proud.
We appreciate
We're not
it.
Greenville.
We have Miss Dr. Brenda Lee Price coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Brenda Lee Price. I live at 291 Alexander Avenue. I'm a native of Spartanburg, have lived here all my life, been through all the ups and downs. But I'm up here tonight because I'm real upset. Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for giving me an opportunity to express my concerns about the name changing of South Liberty Street. You have information that's more detailed in your packet if you'd like to get more information concerning the issue. South Liberty Street was established in the 1800s, shortly after emancipation. And in 1969, then John West, I think he's lieutenant governor, who said that the bulldozing of urban renewal has created more housing problems than it solved by destroying the neighborhood. Today, 2006, this year, 2006, the South Side identity is once again being destroyed by changing the name of South Liberty Street. South Liberty Street is the spine of our community and the Urban Renewal Project. Carper High School, South Liberty Street. USO, which is now C.C. Woodson, South Liberty Street. Mount Moriah Baptist Church, South Liberty Street. The first school that taught black kids doing segregation, Church of the Epiphany, which is still standing, one of the few buildings I think that's left on South Liberty Street, is still standing today. Collins Funeral Home, which was also a hotel where entertainers who came to Spartanburg to perform at the auditorium, because the hotels were segregated, they were able to stay at Collins Funeral Home. And that's it. But the only thing I ask you all to do, I know you don't have the power, just try to address that issue of renaming streets.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Miss Gina Draught.
Hello, my name is Gina Drott, and I am one of the founders of Strong Towns, a local chapter of Strong Towns. And we, among other things, like to advocate for safe public spaces. And I just want to thank all of you for all that you do to advocate for public spaces that are, car-free places where kids can be safe. That's a big thing for me. And also, Strong Towns is sponsoring Miles of the Mayor this month on April 25. So if anybody wants to come out and walk with us and hear a little bit more about what we do and possibly join us, that'd be great. I just wanted to say that I'm just here just to say I'm in support of all things public spaces. So I think that the Barnett Park proposal is great and a good compromise for things that people have been concerned about, and I think it looks great to me, and making the park better and more accessible for all people is a great thing. And we moved to Spartanburg partly because our daughters came here for USC Upstate, and we started hanging out here, and we loved Morgan Square, and so we decided to move here from Greenville because we loved that so much. And so I just want to say I am excited to see Morgan Square keep moving forward, and so I'm just here in support of that. Yeah, that's mostly it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Don Bramley.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. Thank you for allowing us to have a speech. My name is Don Bramlett. I live at 185 Mills Avenue in the city. I just want to address a couple of things. I hope I can do it fast enough. I'm very proud of the city for picking the proposed site for the new clock tower and clock. I think that's just a really good mix. I remember when the Barnett family donated that acreage to the city to become a park, and it had been an old garage and service area for bus service, interstate bus service. It was called Carolina Scenic Stages. It goes back 100 years, I guess. But anyway, so I kind of watched the progress there, and I'm glad to see that the city's willing to try to update and improve a lot of the facilities there. One of the concerns I have is parking. I believe that when the city built the park, there was probably some kind of understanding with the church across the street that that parking lot over there would be open. And now that they've closed that park, it does present quite a problem. With Chapman Center right next door, the Chapman Center has to coordinate things with Barnett Park, because when Barnett Park has an event, all the people park at the Chapman Center. So if Chapman Center has an event, there's no parking, or there's no parking nearby. And so I just wish there was some way to have some communication with First Baptist Church to see if they would change their attitude about not allowing any parking over there, because that's a lot of parking places. And they don't pay any taxes, so they ought to be a good citizen in an open parking lot. That's the way I feel. The other thing is...
Mr. Bramlett,
oh, that's good.
that's your time.
That
Thank
worked
you.
out fine.
Thank you. Andy Draw.
My name is Andy Drott, and I just want to say I'm a huge fan of Spartanburg, and this week I want to talk about the housing section of the comprehensive plan, which I love. I am hugely in favor of alternative housing such as accessory dwelling units, duplexes, cottage, pocket neighborhoods, things like that. But I hope that in the upcoming zoning ordinance rewrite that we'll look around and learn from countless other cities, including our neighbors over in Greenville, who went through a whole lot of trouble to rewrite their zoning to allow for accessory dwelling units, only to find that hardly any get built. Because if without the ecosystem of small-time builders, or that people who are willing to work in backyards, homeowners are competing with the big national builders for trades, for contractors and things like that, and they get quoted, on average, for cities like ours, for a small 600, like one-bedroom accessory dwelling unit, around $200,000 to $300,000. So you can imagine that's really hard to finance. When your regular home, your three-bedroom home's worth maybe about that or something like that, they just don't get built. So I'm begging Spartanburg to consider legalizing tiny homes on wheels as a incremental step, as a way to experiment with backyard dwellings. They don't have to be permitted forever. Lots of other cities permit them temporary, like 3 to 5 year permits. The permit fees cover increased city services, and it allows people to experiment with backyard dwelling places. You can put as many requirements on the architectural standards. They can be certified. They can, there's lots of ways that just imagine a homeowner who has a backyard, it's a hard time paying their increased property taxes, could spend a few $1,000s to create a rentable pad in their backyard, and then have supplement their income by renting to someone who has a tiny house and would love a place to live in the city of Spartanburg. I promise all the questions you have
Thank
have
you,
been
sir.
asked and answered in other cities.
Thank you. Bailey, Wren. Sorry.
Making me dizzy.
3 more times.
Hi, I'm Bailey Wren. First, I would like to thank the City Council team for making public comments more accessible for people with disabilities like myself. It's really making such a huge difference, and I hope you know how impactful this is. Thank you, Christy, very much for the microphone. Second, I would like to mention that I really admire the proposal for making the clock tower the entrance for Barnett Park. I think it's a wonderful way to incorporate it into our city and making it accessible to the public in ways that the previous island could not. And lastly, I would like to bring up a concern I had for Barnett Park and kind of our entire city as a whole. We desperately need to have more native plants incorporated into our town. I recognize that Barnett Park needs the large empty lawn for vending and performance reasons, but I don't see why we can't incorporate more native flowers and foliage where the picnic benches are or around the border of the park. Currently, our city is heavily relying on the aggressively invasive lily turf grass for our landscaping, and we really need to put a stop to that. It's like planting kudzu downtown and pretending that it won't take over our forests and lawns. It is. It's in my lawn. It's everywhere. It's in forests. It's completely taking over. It's not native, and it's outcompeting a lot of other native grasses and flowers that our insects and our birds really rely on. It's also really hard to get rid of. There are plenty of other incredible native options we can choose from, and a quick example of that would be some blue-eyed grass that I saw that has been planted at the new Boxcar Apartments. I think they look beautiful, and they come back every year, and they also are an evergreen, so I think that'd be much better than the invasive lily turf, but that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kumar.
Hi, I'm Madhav Kumar, and I'm here today just to speak in favor of the clock tower at Barnett Park. I think the new design looks really good. I like that it's in the entrance, which engages people. We actually get to walk right through it and look at it and engage with the history. I like that the bell the bell is going to be highlighted and visible. I do think there is valid concerns around that area being a little disconnected from the rest of downtown, but I really hope that this could be a first step in, almost creating a more integrated cultural district, connecting it with Chapman, Sam, as well as the parking garage that's over there, and making that a little bit more connected, as well as maybe figuring out ways we could work with SCDOT to address East St. John Street being as loud as it is, and also difficult to cross for pedestrians, which would make it easier to connect it to the rest of downtown. But that's it. I think it looks great, and I'm looking forward to the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stoddard, Wesley Stoddard.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
members of council, thank you so much for this opportunity to come back. Tonight, I brought a prop with me. This is from 50 years ago, 1976, that my dad wore to the school throughout Spartanburg County. It's a replica of the 3rd Maryland Regiment's uniform. We fought at Battle of Cowpens. 20,000 school children in 1976 raised $10,000 to go toward this clock tower. I want to piggyback on my good friend Brenda Lee. Spartanburg doesn't do enough to focus on our history, and that's what this is all about. You just heard 2 speakers speak about the problems about if you do locate it at Barnett Park, about parking from one of them, and the other one crossing the street, the other one. If you get to the top of the hill and come from Dean Street toward it, I rode it twice this week to see, you can't even see the entrance to Barnett Park from the top of the hill because of all the trees. But 3,000 signatures on the petition said preserve the clock tower. 2 of you voted to preserve the clock tower. We really appreciate that. But the court hearing ruled public input, you're doing that by the petitions, various sites to be looked at. The city manager told us that no other sites had been looked at besides Barnett Park. So when you do vote, I want you to consider all those, they've taken the time to write you these past 2 weeks, and consider the 3,000 signatures and the 20,000 school kids, and consider the Spartan Regiment. Thank you so much for your vote. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stoddard. Mr. Snyder, Al Snyder.
Good evening. Al Schneider. Get ready to get started here. Okay. All right. This evening, I'm taking a page out of Mayor Stoddard's playbook when he wore the Revolutionary uniform for the clock tower. Good timing, Robert. That was pretty good. Expect that. Anyway, this, of course, is not a Revolutionary War uniform, but back in December of last year, my daughter and 2 grandchildren came down from Asheville, and we went to a Greenville Swamp Rabbits game. It was a teddy bear toss night, and it was packed. We even ended up parking in the top level of the parking garage. It was so full, never had to do that before. Anyway, when the Swamp Rabbits scored their first goal, they stopped the game. Then fans came down and tossed teddy bears into the rink, okay? Over 9,000 teddy bears were collected and donated from that one game, 9,000. Now think how many people that takes to get 9,000 teddy bears in there, okay? Now, talk about economic development. It was amazing. My kids loved it. However, I walked away with one thing thinking on my mind. Why couldn't I take my kids to a pro hockey game in Spartanburg? How long has Spartanburg been around? Huh? Tell me. Okay, if you really wanted to serve your people, number one, you would have left the clock tower alone where it was, which the people told you they wanted. Again, Robert, 3,000 signatures, right? Secondly, you would be building an arena where parents and their kids' families could go together, enjoy hockey games, basketball games, high school championships, college championships, conventions, conferences, etc. You want to talk about economic impact, okay? All right? That's how you have economic impact. Instead, you're building your Lego palace just for yourselves, okay? That municipal building. And restaurants are closing there all around you
Snyder,
now, right?
that's your 2 minutes.
But you don't care. Because
Mr.
you
Snyder,
never
that's your
have.
2 minutes.
All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Let me finish, please. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wiles, Leon Wiles.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Leon Wiles. I live at 114 Vista Drive in Moore. I've been a longtime resident of Spartanburg County, over 40 years, and I'm running for chairman of the Spartanburg County Council. And I'm running because Spartanburg has been great to me and my family, and I want to give something back. I'm not a career politician, but I have served on numerous boards in Spartanburg as a public servant. I've been on the United Way board, I've been on the YMCA board, I've been on the Village Partnership board, I have served the Fatherhood Coalition, I have also been involved with the YMCA, served on their board, the Urban League of the Upstate board. So I've been actively involved in trying to give something back to Spartanburg. I am interested in this position because I believe that my administrative experience, I've worked at several institutions of higher learning, including USC Upstate and Clemson University, as well as others outside of the state. And through that career of more than 30 years, I have developed administrative skills that I think can be applied to the development of Spartanburg County. There are several things that I'd like to do. One is promote a balanced and responsible economic development plan for the county, improve infrastructure and reduce road hazards, ensure transparent and accountable budgeting, adopt rational growth strategies. Spartanburg is growing very rapidly, and it's important that we have a strategic plan to harness that growth and use it to the benefit of the county. Maintain an effective public safety while improving public trust. One of my responsibilities was serving as supervisor of University Police. So I'm very, very keenly aware of the need for secure public environment. That's my time.
Wow, that's your 2 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. We have item 6, proclamation declaring the month of April as Fair Housing Month in the city of Spartanburg. I will present that. So we have not all of our realtors, but quite a few realtors here that's accompanying us this evening on this proclamation reading. Whereas the Fair Housing Act enacted on April the 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law as the goal eliminating racial discrimination and ending housing segregation in the United States. Whereas Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, and disabilities, and commits recipients of federal funding affirmative further fair housing in their communities. All them F's killing me there. Whereas the city of Spartanburg, as well as Spartanburg Association of Realtors Incorporated, are committed to the mission and intent of the Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. Whereas our social fabric, the economic, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. Whereas more than 50 years after passing a Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists and many communities remain segregated. And whereas acts of housing discriminations and barriers to equal housing opportunities are repugnant to the common sense of decency and fairness. Now, therefore, I, Jerome Rice, by the virtue and authority vested as me as the mayor of the city of Spartanburg, and on behalf of my fellow city council members, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as Fair Housing Month. So that deserves a hand clap. The proclamation here. We thank you all for your willingness to participate and be fair with the fair housing. Rick, I'm gonna get right in here. We're gonna take us a big picture. Good, good. Thank you all. Item 7. Seven. Read it off. You go ask.
It's seven. Yes, seven.
Read it.
Read it.
Proclamation.
Declaring April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Spartanburg.
Yes. Thank you.
Here we go. I'll come to this side to meet you all.
I know I'm slack on
Whereas South Carolina, 1.1 million children residing in diverse communities across our state, including over 200,000 children in Spartanburg, are our most vulnerable resources and will shape the future of our great state. Whereas childhood trauma, including neglect and abuse, is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires an input and actions from everyone. Whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. Whereas protective factors and conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and development well-being of children and youth. Whereas effective child abuse prevention activities such as, whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health and community, faith-based organizations, businesses, and mental and behavioral health, law enforcement agencies, and families. Whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community in partnership to build awareness about children abuse and neglect, child abuse and neglect, and contribute to promote the social and economic well-being of children, youth, families, in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. Whereas in the state fiscal year 2024 through 2025, there were 7,024 substandard child protective services CPS investigation with that's 12,000, that was a big gap.
Yeah.
12,371 children in South Carolina, and investigation with 340 children in Spartanburg County. Alarming numbers. Now therefore I, Jerome Rice, by the virtue and authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Spartanburg and on behalf of my fellow city council members, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the city of Spartanburg. So we do appreciate all you guys do in this profession for helping our children and our most vulnerable. Thank you. Thank you. We have item 8, a place to call home. Presentation, presenter, Hannah Jarrett, and that's not Hannah standing there. That's Mr. Mitch Kennedy.
Mayor, members of council, I just wanted to make a note. Hannah needs no introduction, but I did want to make a note. A few weeks ago at a previous council meeting, City Manager Chris Story noted the significant investment that city had made in this initiative and the huge impact that we've seen from that investment, and with the significance of it, we thought it would be beneficial to hear greater context around the work that has transpired. In addition, this past March marked the 1-year anniversary of the launch of A Place to Call Home. And I know Hannah is going to acknowledge members of the leadership team and her staff, but I just wanted to note how hugely grateful we are for what we've seen in the past year from Hannah and her leadership. So I just thought it would be beneficial to introduce this segment by noting those things that we've seen from the past year. Hannah Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Hello, Mayor. Can y'all hear me with this? Okay. Mayor, members, and council, thanks so much for time on the agenda tonight to share a year 1 update of A Place to Call Home. To start, we really look at data to inform our work. So when we look at the need in our community related to homelessness, we know that there are at least 3,000 people who are experiencing homelessness in our community on any given night, and half of those people are children. And when we look at our population that is at risk of homelessness, we look at ALICE data. 50% of Spartanburg County residents are below the ALICE threshold, which means that despite the fact that they are working and employed, they do not make enough to afford their basic needs. And so there's just one unexpected life event or one missed paycheck away from being unable to pay for a basic need, such as housing, that could put them then at risk of homelessness. And single mothers and renters are more likely to experience homelessness in our community. And then when we look at our community's ability to respond to that need, ability and capacity to respond to that need, we look at our housing continuum from shelter to home ownership. So just to share with you a little bit about our current capacity as a community to respond to those needs, we currently have about 170 shelter beds, predominantly for individual men and those fleeing from domestic violence situations. We have about 175 transitional housing beds, predominantly for people in reentry or recovery programs. We have a little under 4,000 housing vouchers through our housing authority in this community with a 3 to 5 year waiting list. And our average rent is $1,300, which is affordable for people at or above 125% of AMI, or area median income. So when A Place to Call Home was formed a year ago in late March 2025, we were founded with the mission to provide the focus, strategy, and expertise Spartanburg County needs to address homelessness and to achieve our vision of a Spartanburg County where homelessness is recognized as a solvable problem and where everyone has a safe, secure place to call home. All of our work related to achieving that mission and vision for this community is grounded in the philosophy that homelessness is complex, that housing is a basic human right, and that our approach must be inclusive, collaborative, comprehensive, and balance both short and long-term solutions. So our efforts really span the entire continuum of preventing homelessness from happening in the first place, serving those who are experiencing homelessness, so it's brief, rare, and non-recurring, and making sure that we have diverse and affordable housing options for people across the socioeconomic spectrum, but particularly those of lower incomes. So when we started, late March of 2025, we were given this list of immediate priorities as sort of our charge for the first year of A Place to Call Home. And so I'm going to provide you all with an update on where we're at with each of these. But very quickly, they were to add staff capacity to this effort, to launch a steering committee, to work in alignment with other efforts, to identify and initiate a data sharing platform, to revamp the case conferencing model that we use here in our community to foster more collaboration, to provide greater support to families in need, and to expedite the opening of Bridgeway Village. So the Cliff Notes version of the update is that we have made progress and completed these immediate priorities, but I am going to dive a little bit deeper into our leadership, our structure, and some of the programs that we offer to give, and our impact, to give you a better sense of what we've been working on for the past year in relation to these immediate priorities. So we are led by a leadership team of 7 institutional leaders here in Spartanburg County, including the city of Spartanburg, which does serve as our employer, and also invested funding in getting us started, which I'll share an update about that in just a second. In addition to 6 other organizations, institutional organizations listed here. We also are led by a community advisory council, which is made up of over 40 representatives from organizations who are extremely proximate and boots on the ground to the issue of homelessness. We also have individuals with lived experience who serve on our community advisory council. And we currently have a staff of 10. We started with the idea of just having a director of A Place to Call Home, which was sort of the to-do item on that immediate priority list, but we were overachievers in this area, knowing that this effort really needed more time and capacity to really focus on it. So we now have a team of 10. I do want to point out just a couple of positions just to illustrate the comprehensive nature of our work. One is we have a bus driver, because we know that transportation is often a challenge for employment, housing, education, job training, those types of things. And so we're able to offer that service in-house. And then we also recently hired a Heart Ambassador, which is a part-time position that does engagement with our street homeless, particularly in the downtown area, to be able to do initial intakes, referrals, connection to services, but also follow through with those individuals to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. I do want to pause here because I know many of our leadership team, community advisory council, and staff are in the audience, but just to recognize them and all the work. So if you are part of any of those groups, would you please stand? And thank you to that. I mean, what I'm here sharing is a representative of the work of a collective. We know that there's no single person, individual, organization in our community who can do this work. It really takes all of us working together to address an issue as complex as homelessness. So I'm up here talking, but it's representative of the work of the collective. So some of our programs are listed on, or all of our programs currently are listed on this screen. I'm not going to go into great detail of all of them. So if there's a program that you want to ask questions about, you're welcome to, but I do want to highlight a few just to give you a sense of the work that we've been doing. One is our Litter Heroes program, which has been we've been doing for about 5 years in partnership with the city and other organizations, is expanding this year to be able to serve more people and also connect people into additional job opportunities, additional industries that are aligned with the talent gap analysis that Spartanburg has done to really meet the workforce demands of our community and connecting people who are experiencing homelessness with those opportunities. We are planning to launch that expanded Workforce Heroes program in July, and our goal is to engage 30 people in that program by the end of the calendar year. We also have several other ways that we are removing barriers to employment in partnership with organizations through some individual assistance opportunities. We have our homeless engagement and response team, which I know y'all are all aware of, but HEART, I do want to share that one of the things in particular with HEART that we have been focusing on over the past year is how can we make sure that we are addressing some of the most complex issues related to homelessness, particularly for those who are experiencing chronic homelessness. So we identified 5 of the most complex homeless cases and chronically homeless cases in our downtown area, and with the goal of can we house them in 90 days. And I'm proud to share that it took a little bit longer than 90 days, but not too much. But we have housed 4 out of 5 of those individuals just by taking the approach of an intensive and collaborative approach to addressing their needs. We also have done a lot to create more opportunities for collaboration through the Situation Table and Wellbeing Care community. And then our housing efforts include a landlord engagement strategy to remove common barriers to housing that already exists in our community. And then we operate a family shelter in partnership with the Faith Initiative to End Child Poverty called A Way Home. Bridgeway, which is transitional housing for single women and families. Those 2 programs that are really focused on families. Prior to the existence, there was not transitional housing or shelter within a 50-mile radius of Spartanburg County. So meeting a very, very critical need in our community. All right, and then finally, our impact. So since the late March 2025, we have served 578 households, comprised of a little over 1,000 people. We have played an active and ongoing role in exiting 132 people from homelessness. That does not include referrals that we made to other organizations where those organizations took the lead on exiting them from homelessness. This is just 132 people that our team at A Place to Call Home played an active and ongoing role in terms of ending their homelessness. We have increased shelter and housing options by 20%, particularly in shelter, transitional housing, and rapid rehousing in the past year by leveraging resources that were not formally being leveraged. All of this has been done in partnership, so we facilitate and manage 109 partnerships to make this impact and work possible. We also utilize volunteers in our work, and we couldn't do it without our volunteers, particularly our volunteers who do all of the 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. operations of our family shelter. And then we've raised $3.5 million. So the initial investment that the city made in this work, we matched it within 6 months in non-city funding. And we went above and beyond that. One of the things that I want to mention about this funding is that prior to A Place to Call Home existing, Spartanburg County was receiving 2.4% of the upstate continuum of care dollars. So upstate continuum of care is the 10 counties of the upstate. They receive funding specifically for homelessness for the counties in the upstate to deliver services. We were only getting 2.4% of that funding, despite being the 2nd largest county in the upstate, and we are now today receiving 17% of that funding, which is proportional to the homeless population that we have here. So with that, I have some ways that you can get involved and connect people to services, learn more about the issue, volunteer and give, but I'm happy to pause here and answer any questions that y'all have.
Sure. Questions? Before I see Councilwoman Smith, just a little bit more about the bus and how are some of our unhoused folks participating? We take them to work, or we take them to appointments, or?
Yeah, so for our transportation services, anyone who's engaged in any of our programming, so essentially receiving case management, either from HART or one of our community resource coordinators, if they're facing a transportation barrier to work, childcare, school, we are able to provide that. The city, Jason back there, has spent a lot of time on our bus. We do have a 17-passenger bus. We have a part-time bus driver, and then we're able to schedule out that route like a week in advance based on the needs of the families that we have and the individuals that we're serving.
No, and I think it's great. I have encountered the bus before, and was asking questions. I'm like, wow, that's unique. So
Yes.
again, thank you for that. Councilwoman Smith.
Thank you, Hannah, and to the whole team, the advisory council, the staff. Y'all have done incredible work in just a year. I remember being at the train depot when we cut the ribbon, and for all of this impact in just a year is really tremendous. Did you say you're going to go over this get involved section? Or
I can if you want me to. Otherwise, it's just there for your.
Yeah, I had a question, but
you to take a picture of it.
I think homelessness is a situation where a lot of people care, but maybe don't know how to get involved. And also there's a lot of misconceptions, and maybe this will be my question and you can answer both at the same time. A lot of misconceptions, and whenever we have this discussion, I always like to talk about seen and unseen homelessness. And you talked about 3,000 people who are experiencing homelessness. Well, those 3,000 people are not downtown. But downtown is the seen homelessness, and that's what makes the news. That's what we encounter on a day-to-day basis. But, the kids, we don't ever see children downtown. They're sleeping in motels, they're couch surfing, they're with their moms in their cars. So if you could just spend a little time maybe educating on the difference between those two populations and kind of the different services that y'all provide for both of those. And then when we've talked before, you've talked about the ability for folks to come and shadow the HART team or to come and do a deeper dive with you on key drivers of homelessness and really nerd out with Hannah on all things. So if you could kind of combine both of those, I think that'd be really great.
Yes, thank you, Megan. So yes, you are exactly right. Families experiencing homelessness are often not recognized. Your kids probably sit beside homeless kids in the classroom and don't even know it. Because it is prevalent in our community. Families are the most likely group of people to be experiencing homelessness in our country, but also, that's true for Spartanburg County as well. And so our work, when we think about where can we meet the greatest need, fill the biggest gaps in our community, especially when we think about how half of our homeless population is children, and there wasn't a family shelter within a 50-mile radius of our community until last May. When we think about how can we meet the greatest needs and fill the greatest gaps, it's oftentimes related to homeless families, just because it is so prevalent in that population. However, that's not the population that most people perceive as being homeless, and so it can sometimes maybe be perceived that nothing's happening, right? We could essentially eradicate homelessness in Spartanburg, and you might still see 20, 30 people on the street. Now we still serve them. We do both and, right? We're serving the individuals who are on the street as well as families who are maybe living in hotels, couch surfing, living in their cars, that type of thing. But that's what we mean when homelessness is complex. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. If you've met one person who's experienced homelessness, you've met one person who's experienced homelessness. And we have to be able to have a system that is adaptable to those unique needs that different populations and people experience. And then in terms of how people can get involved, here's many ways, a place to get started. Like you mentioned, there are a couple of opportunities to learn more coming up next week. We have a housing summit. Anyone is welcome to register and come to that. We do have a few tickets left, and if cost is an issue for anyone, they can reach out to us and we can help overcome that. And then we have our annual Homeless Memorial on Wednesday of next week as another opportunity to learn more and to connect. If somebody does want to geek out with me about homelessness, I'm always happy to do that. I can talk about this for days and hours and weeks, and so can the team. So we're always happy to come do lunch and learns, trainings, deeper dives into the issue, and our team is also happy to help facilitate any shadowing opportunities if people really want to learn more. I will say that oftentimes people's response to homelessness, in my experience, is to feed people. And there is need for that. We always encourage people in those situations to connect with organizations whose mission is to feed people. So the Soup Kitchen, Miracle Hill, Invisible Ministries, they are in our community already, wake up every day to feed people who are experiencing food insecurity and homelessness, if that's the case. And so we always encourage people to connect with those organizations so those organizations can have a greater impact. And if you want to solve homelessness, reach out to us because we're going beyond, one meal. We're looking at what would it look like for you to have a safe house that you can sustain and live in. And that's what the work that we're doing. We do have a volunteer opportunity need right now. If anybody wants to volunteer with our family shelter, reach out to us and we will happily get you engaged there.
Councilman Rogers.
Anna, can you detail that volunteer just opportunity a little bit more? I think that, I think that we have a number of members of our community that would like to help, have busy schedules, have families of their own. Can you give a little bit more detail of, is it an afternoon? Is it a one-time thing? What are the ranges of volunteer opportunities to meet different people's availability?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you sign up for our newsletter, which is the last bullet on this list at aptchspartanburg.org, we typically do one volunteer activity a month, one volunteer opportunity. So that's just like if you have time on a Saturday and want to come out for a couple hours, we typically do one of those types of volunteer opportunities each month. And it will be on a range of different things. So that's for those one-time volunteer opportunities, I recommend that you sign up for our newsletter to be alerted of what that looks like. For our family shelter, we typically are looking for ongoing volunteers who can maybe volunteer monthly or weekly, just because we do require training because they are in a family shelter environment and interacting with children. We do require a background check. We do require them to go through child protection training, those types of things, which is a little bit of a more intensive commitment than most people would be wanting to do for a one-time, volunteer opportunity. Working with our family shelter is at our day center, so engaging with families who are at our day center to do laundry, take showers. There's a kitchen there where they can prepare meals. Kids can do homework, they can watch movies, when they're not at school, that type of thing. And so being a volunteer there, that's a resource for those families while they're in that environment.
Councilman Brown.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Hannah. You and your team do a tremendous job for our community. I know I've had the opportunity to work with Stephen and Beth through some of our patients through the clinic, and they've always just been so incredibly responsive. You mentioned about being one emergency away from homelessness and one paycheck away from homelessness. If I understand it correct, I know that some of the barriers are evictions or history of evictions and the opportunity that folks can't get housing because perhaps maybe they've been evicted in the past. Do I understand there is a bipartisan bill at the State House to hopefully tackle this issue, to get those things sort of taken off their record so that there might be more opportunities for folks?
Yes, there is an eviction ceiling bill at the state level right now that is being reviewed or proposed and reviewed. That bill would mean that if you receive an eviction, but it does not result in an eviction, you've just been served an eviction, but you aren't evicted, then that would be removed from your record. Right now, even if you're served an eviction, but an eviction isn't filed, that does show up on your record. And so that bill is specifically looking at those situations where you're served one, but you don't receive, the eviction isn't filed. Or on, you aren't evicted from your home. So that is an opportunity. When we think about eviction prevention in our community and what we're focusing on at A Place to Call Home here in Spartanburg, a lot of that has to do with tenant education. So making sure that people understand their rights. You would be surprised the number of times that we've encountered situations where, maybe somebody stops paying their rent because of a maintenance issue that they don't feel like is being resolved. But as soon as they stop paying their rent, they're forfeiting their rights as a tenant. And so that tenant education piece is really, really important, and something that we plan to incorporate into our upcoming financial wellness pilot. We also know that access to legal counsel and guidance is really important throughout that process for both the tenant and the landlord, right? And so there are models in other communities like housing courts that provide some help with navigating that legal process. It may or may not necessarily prevent the eviction from happening, but will provide education to make that process a little better, and then hopefully prevent future eviction from occurring. We do work with landlords through our Welcome Home network who might sometimes just on paper exclude somebody or choose not to rent to somebody because they have an eviction on their record. But if they're engaged with our community resource coordinator, sometimes we're able to advocate with them with certain landlords for exceptions to be made within certain bounds and reasons. That's a lot of the work that we do through our Welcome Home network with landlords.
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up to that, I would love to see the city be more involved in that education piece as well. I have often received calls from folks in my district who are renters who have maintenance issues that are not being resolved, but yet they're afraid to speak up because they are afraid that there will be some reason why they need to be, evicted from their homes. And I can tell them all day what their rights are. And then they need to report it, but they have to initiate that. And so I would love to see the city, be really engaged with that as well and educating tenants so that they know what their rights are. Because oftentimes they're just afraid to speak up.
Yeah, our plan is to incorporate that financial wellness programming within our community centers within the city. So at TK Gregg and CC Woodson to make it more accessible to the broader community.
Councilman Farmer.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Hannah, congratulations to you and your team on a impactful and consequential first year. I mean, I think one of the things when we talked about this concept about collaboration and bringing all the disparate parts together and really bringing them under one umbrella so that they work in concert with one another, I think we see it very clearly on the statistics. I mean, 578 families served, 132 people have exited homelessness. I mean, these are people. Right. And so, we can get lost in the statistics, but when we think about the fact that these are actual people, that's something that should be very encouraging to us as we move forward now into year two and try to build on the impact that you and your team have already had. And I'm also very encouraged by the fact that, when we made our $750,000 investment, I think that's what it was, one of the things as we looked at all of our ARPA funding that was important to me was that we were able to leverage that funding and make that money go much further than we could do on our own. And the fact that you've been able to leverage that into $3.5 million, you've been able to take the 2.4% from the funding source that you mentioned and make that 17.5%, given the context of our homeless population. I mean, I think that shows additional impact and efficacy of the strategy that we're employing. So I really appreciate that and applaud that and think that those are very, very important first year metrics. The other piece, as you mentioned, it's very complex, obviously the whole issue. There's been some headlines generated around the law enforcement piece. And I think it's important that we are always very compassionate and considerate of anyone in our community that needs help. But we also have to enforce our laws. And I know, and I hear from downtown, visitors, merchants, businesses, and others, of the impact of, and I don't even know if they're homeless, but the littering, the loitering, the crossing of the street in the middle of the street, almost daring for folks to hit them, at times. And again, I don't know if these people are homeless or not, but they are disruptive, whomever they are. And so as we think about our work and go forward to do all of the other aspects of this, are we going to be more intentional going forward about enforcing a lot of these rules and regulations and codes and laws that we have, to make sure that we don't find ourselves in these episodic situations where we go in and we do a massive correction, if you will, and really keep the momentum going over the long haul that complements all the other work that you're doing with your team.
Yes. So, I'm not law enforcement. None of my team is law enforcement. But we do partner very closely with law enforcement, both in the city and in the county, to respond in situations where people either we know or we suspect might be experiencing homelessness or housing instability. And that's been a great partnership in the sense that it's allowed us, through our homeless engagement and response team, to connect with and connect people to resources that we might otherwise not know about or not have the opportunity to engage with. However, I cannot speak for law enforcement in terms of the strategy for enforcing laws, but do know that it is in partnership so that we can bring that element of community resource to those instances when it does occur. So to give you an example, HART and law enforcement, there have been situations where we call law enforcement and they respond with us because we're requesting it. Maybe when we're going out into an encampment in the woods, we don't want to go out there alone, but also law enforcement will call us when they know that they're going to respond to situations so that our team can connect them to resources. So for example, homeless court is a very common resource that we connect people to when they're experiencing minor legal issues such as trespassing, loitering, those types of things. Shoplifting. Homeless court is a court that they can go through with case management from our team to address those legal issues, but with the goal of getting them into a stable situation. Usually employment and housing are the outcomes that we strive for and that we achieve through homeless court. So it's really great to be able to connect with people who otherwise might be falling through the cracks through the partnership that we have with law enforcement. But I can't speak to the enforcement strategy necessarily.
And to that point a little bit, I've always heard from law enforcement that we find there's a latency in the process, right? And so the work that you're doing, combining and collaborating, helps to address that, where somebody that law enforcement is dealing with, and we rely on our law enforcement in so many ways, but having the ability to reach out to somebody from your team to do the case management work that helps them get from whatever moment in time they find themselves to the help they need, which has been really one of the problems in the past, is extremely, I think, important in this equation as we work through it. But I also think we need to make sure that we continue on the enforcement side to ensure that we are hitting all the bases as it relates to what is a very complex problem.
One other quick question for me. I'm thinking of the mental health aspect of some of our homeless population. How is that working? How do you get them to the table? Are they already at the table, I would imagine? So.
Yeah, so we partner with Department of Mental Health as well as other organizations that provide mental health support to individuals in our community. There is a common narrative that people who are homeless are mentally ill or on drugs. That's what we commonly hear. But we know from data that the prevalence of substance use disorder and mental illness is not greater in our unhoused versus our housed housed population. However, the caveat is that people who have mental illness diagnosis or substance use disorders, they often experience prolonged homelessness because they have so many challenges and barriers, and oftentimes there are not resources and services available to meet their complex needs. And so that's why we see a lot of chronic homeless individuals who are maybe super we recognize them as homeless, as having mental illness or substance use disorder, just because those conditions often prolong people's experience. One thing that I can share with you specifically related to mental health, because we recognize that it's such a need and we want to be comprehensive in our approach, we have partnered with Project Rest, which is one of the organizations who is on our Community Advisory Council. They operate a shelter for people fleeing domestic violence is one of the services that they provide. They also have counseling services. So we have partnered with them to be able to have a shared mental health professional, clinical position that will spend 50% of their time with those who are in the domestic violence shelter providing mental health counseling, and the other 50% of their time providing those services to the population that we serve. It's been a really great partnership to be able to increase the amount of clinical services that are available in our community specifically for the population that we serve. And I think that this is just sort of the beginning. If we can get this to work, there might be other opportunities to expand mental health services for the homeless population.
Awesome.
I got one more.
Yes. Councilwoman
Hannah,
Sally.
I want to say congratulations to you for the work you've done and your partners, as well as the city of Spartanburg and the council helping you with this project. I do have one question to ask. I know that you're looking at people who are being evicted or people who have been out on the street due to circumstances that's out of their control, I guess you would say. But what about those who can't meet their needs and need some assistance? Do you do that type of work with your program?
Yes, I'm assuming that you're talking about, people who maybe can't cook for themselves, wouldn't be able to live independently. Is that what you're?
That, as well as maybe say their electrical bill is extremely high and they need some assistance.
Yes. So we do not have utilities. We have assistance for certain things, but not something like utility assistance. But the best thing for someone to do if they want to learn about services is call the number on the first bullet here, 864-591-4417. That connects them with our homeless engagement and response team. And if it's a service that we don't provide, we will refer them to a local partner that does meet that need. We often find when people call us, which we get about 10 calls a day to HEART, they might be calling about a utility bill, but as we're talking to them, we realize that they have other needs that are maybe things that we can help address or that can help us make sure that they're getting connected to the best service or multiple services. So we always recommend that people call us and we will help point them in the right direction, whether it's ours or someone else's. And then in terms of people who maybe are in situations where they wouldn't necessarily be able to live independently, that is part of when we do assessments for people to connect them with housing opportunities. It's something that we're looking at and making sure that we're setting them up for sustainable success.
Good. Councilwoman Littlejohn.
Hannah, thank you. I share the concerns of my council members up here. I also want to say the day that I volunteered with you all, I enjoyed doing the art. I want to know if you hung that art someplace, if you had it back in a closet.
Thank you for asking that. First, thank you for volunteering to create art for families who are moving into homes so that they can decorate their housing and really make it feel like home. So thank you for doing that. We do get really creative in our volunteer opportunities, so sign up for our newsletter to learn more. But I will say that, and this is a great sort sort of last thing to share. On April 1st, Wednesday, April 1st, we moved 30 people into housing on that one day. And when I say we moved them into housing, we were a moving company. We were, 5 girls in a truck, and furnished 10 housing units for 18 children and 12 adults. And there were children who had been living, a family, I think of 6 or 8, who had been living in a suburban. And to see those children go in, walk into an apartment to have their own bed in their bedroom, we let them pick out their own comforter, and it would have brought tears to your eyes to see it. So on April 1st, we housed 30 people, including 18 children, and they did get to pick out art to hang on their walls. I don't know if they picked yours. I'll have to double check.
Hers is
Beautiful, beautiful.
hers is still in the back room.
Yeah.
No, Hannah, again, to you and the team and all the partners that play a part in a place to call home, just thank you for what you're doing, not just for the city, but for Spartanburg County as a whole. Just thank you and kudos, man. Really, thank you.
All's leadership and support.
Awesome work. We're at item 9, consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. Item 10, ordinance. Ordinance authorizing the city of Spartanburg, South Carolina to execute the delivery and equipment lease purchase agreement in the amount not to exceed $4,500,000 between the city and leaser thereof, defray the costs acquiring certain equipment and other matters thereunto. Mr. Dennis Locke don't come before us too often, but he's here today.
Right.
Always expensive.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I'm glad that Jason is back in the back. He's the fleet manager. We do an annual process where we evaluate the various pieces of equipment that need to be replaced. And Jason and his team, they do a thorough review with the department. They determine which vehicles need to be replaced based on the condition of the vehicles. Also within this capital lease, there was a fire truck that City Council approved to purchase back in fiscal year 2024, but due to the timeline that it takes to manufacture the fire trucks, that fire truck will be delivered to us in January of 27, so therefore it is included on this capital lease. And for those who have been around for a long time, you realize that this capital lease is larger than they normally are, but part of that is due to the increase of prices just of police vehicles and other regular vehicles. And also on this list that was included in your council package, we had budgeted about $650,000 for some IT upgrades. And so that's why we are asking council to give the city manager the approval to enter into a capital lease for this equipment. This is what we have done on a regular basis. We included it as part of our budget where we have capital leases that roll off at various years. We include the debt payments within our annual operating budget. And so we're asking, we have some estimates of what the current financing would be that are listed on the report. I think we said because we have the fire truck, which we finance over 10 years, that estimated interest rate is 4.36%, and the estimated interest cost for the 5-year equipment is 3.78%, for a total estimated of about $634,000 the first 5 years. And so if there are any other questions, if you have questions about the equipment, that's why I'm glad Jason is here. If you have questions about the financing, that's what Chris Story and I are here for. But any questions that you might have?
Sure, I'm sure Councilman Farmer has questions.
I know, I've been waiting for this. I'm looking at him
you have.
He's been avoiding me.
I need to get more creative because you actually addressed a couple of my questions related to the fire truck. That I wondered if that was the one we had approved, and then the IT upgrade work. what is the 5-year, you mentioned this expenditure was more significant than in past years. What's the 5-10-year run rate of our lease purchase agreements? Like on an annual basis, like how much was it last year? How many do we, and how much was it?
The last lease that we came with the council for was like $2.8 million. And I believe in that lease, we did have a 10-year lease in there and a 5-year lease. And so we did that in, I believe, fiscal year 24. And so those would be paid off the 5 years would be paid off in fiscal year 29, and the 10 years, of course, would be in fiscal year.
So the last time we did this was in FY 24?
I believe so, either 24, it might have been a fiscal year 25, because I know last year we did not come before the city council, because we were trying to do some reconciliation of the equipment that was outstanding. But Councilman Former, I do want to say that we will be back in fiscal year 27 for next year's lease. I'm just sort of putting it,
Well,
but it won't be as much.
and all kidding aside, I guess my overriding question has always been, and I'm not doubting Jason's good work with the fleet management, but we have nice vehicles in our fleet, which is, we should have good, well-maintained, effective, dependable vehicles, and I have no problem with that. But it seems like we, either every year or two, we spend a tremendous amount of money on our vehicles. And fire trucks aside, which I know those are, kind of one-off items. I just want to make sure that we're stretching the money that we've already spent as far as we possibly can, because $4.5 million is a big slug.
It is.
And I guess my question, looking at the schedule of vehicles, is are there ways to prune that back so that we're not exposing ourselves, either every year or two to a $3.5 to $5 million ongoing expense?
We have tried that, but one of the biggest things that has, or barriers, has been the increased cost of equipment.
Right.
Even the solid waste trucks. I don't know if Jay is still here. Yeah, he's still here. The cost of a solid waste for a side loader in the past 5 years has almost doubled, if I'm not exaggerating, from about $180,000 to now like $360,000. And Jay came to me last week once he saw the list, saying, Dennis, we didn't put a side loader on there, and it's only because Jason is going to try to stretch it out another year. So the city does try to stretch those purchases out over time and try to do the maintenance, keep them up. But when the city is growing, those machines are being used constantly, along with inflation. This is just, the effects we see right here with the increased prices.
Yeah, I guess when I think about, as our city grows, side loaders and things like that, those are big ticket pieces of equipment.
They are.
But when I look at, some of the ancillary service vehicles, police cruisers, code enforcement vehicles, things like that, probably don't have the same, they're getting more and more expensive.
Right.
But they don't have the same level of complexity that a truck with a side loader or a fire truck has. Are we doing everything we can to make those vehicles' lives last as long as they possibly can, given the fact that all of our costs are going up across the board, particularly for those really expensive must-have items?
All right. I would have to rely on Jason to answer that question, because they look at the condition of the vehicles, and Jay and his other team members, they look at the demand for services, and I believe that our team does look at that, because we really ask departments a lot of questions as why should we replace this? How come it can't last another year? And so, but if you want to get to the specifics about what they're doing, again, I would need somebody like Jason to give some input, or Jay, I'll put you on the spot.
And I can add just a couple of
Put him on the spot.
tidbits of context. We track each each piece of equipment subject to this entire program, we track what we do on a preventive maintenance and on responsive maintenance. Something goes wrong, right? And so you won't see a uniform, all right, when they hit 100,000 miles, that's it. It will be a specific, vehicle-specific history that the team looks at and says, okay, well, we've had this particular vehicle in front of us or taken out of service multiple times, and they'll look at the reasons why. So it's very much a case-by-case basis informed by the actual experience data tied to that specific vehicle. And the other aspect of this that hasn't been mentioned yet that is complicating our world a little bit is a lot of the specialty equipment, we're experiencing significantly longer lead times post-pandemic than we did before, which means that the day you say go, you're still on the next order, you're still stretching the functionality and dependent on the functionality of the old piece of equipment for a longer period of time than most of us have experienced through most of our careers in terms of being able to get deliveries filled and things of that nature. So just from my layperson's perspective, I don't know anything technical associated with the vehicles, but as far as the rigor of the data analysis that I have seen is solid, and I appreciate the team's work on that.
Well, and I recognize that $1.5 million of that money, we've already approved the expenditure.
Correct.
So, I recognize that. I guess the other, not to belabor it, but, when we move to purchase, like when there's a significant change in our ERP system or anything like that, would that come out of this budget? Well, would this be, or would we, obviously we'd have to capitalize some of that, I would think, right?
We do, and in some cases, we can finance certain tools and equipments through the vendors more advantageously than we can finance them directly. And I'll take a minute to try to explain why we finance it all as opposed to pay-going most of this. One of the reasons, this is a good year to be illustrating this. This $4.5 million is a big number for us in the size of our organization. But of course, last year there wasn't any financed equipment. But in both years, there was a steady general fund investment into the equipment replacement fund. So we try to keep that level, and so there can be a bulge in the snake in the actual outflows, but the impact on the general fund budget, we try to keep level and proportional to growth over time. So we don't see this. When you look at our audited financial statements for the last fiscal year and the next fiscal year, you will be able to find this expenditure. But when you look at the general fund contribution to equipment, it'll be different by only the couple $100,000 of inflationary cost we budgeted in the current general fund compared to the last one.
So how much
does that make sense, or am I losing folks?
Well, how much is in our vehicle replacement fund?
How much is in there now, or? We transferred $2.3 million there this year, but again, that goes to cover, the year debt payments. And as we're working on the budget right now, as Chris was saying, we're going to step up that contribution.
$650,000.
No, by another $300,000.
It's a rolling stair steps, so you meet it over a 10-year period versus comparing outflows and inflows in any one year, because we recognize that stair step is going to have to ratchet up, but it doesn't need to go from 2.3 to 4.5 because there is a current balance.
And this is always just a challenge for me because I'm not a mechanic and I'm not, savvy with vehicles and I don't understand. I understand, but I don't have a working knowledge of what it takes to keep vehicles moving over the long haul. And so, all I want to make sure is that we are being good stewards of taxpayer dollars when we make these decisions. And so, it's a bit of a leap of faith for us when we're spending this kind of money to rely on the logic that you and your team have come forward. And I certainly don't have an issue with that. It's just, I think it's something we need to dig deep on to make sure that we're doing our diligence to spend this money wisely. And so, I appreciate you answering my questions.
Sure. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Chris, I know, post-COVID supply chains, from my own experience, fixing equipment, getting pieces of, back up and running, having them run at the expected time, are we reevaluating and consistently looking at, runtime hours and mileage over, and watching those vehicles, the choice of the vehicles that we're going with, obviously the manufacturers? How often are we reassessing the choices that we're making and what we're investing in?
As far as the means and methods, like sidearm loaders versus other equipment, that kind of thing?
That would be, yes, that would be it. But just, looking at, we've got Ford, we've got Chevy, we've got, lots of different options. And are those is it an Explorer the right vehicle? There's the Impala sedan. Like, are we looking at the choices that we're choosing as supply chains shift? I recently read an article yesterday that a car is going out of production for one reason or the other. So how are we reevaluating the choices of the vehicles and the pieces of equipment on our list?
And that's a terrific question, and I think my answer is probably going to not be fully adequate, but it is the most precious resource we have. And the reason why we want to have good equipment is the time of the men and women of the city. So we want to make sure that Jason and team can get the equipment back out and rolling when it needs its preventative maintenance or when something goes wrong. So we don't seek to experiment a whole heck of a lot. That doesn't mean we're wedded to any particular mode, but you want to move carefully through a change because you might have better upfront performance, but reduce run hours over the course of a time and that kind of thing. So we do try to, we're using more electric equipment in our grounds maintenance teams, and we're moving into that. You won't see us be the first on the leading edge. We let some of the bigger communities with larger budgets sometimes do the working out the kinks of some of those things, but we do try to strike the right balance between knowing what we can manage effectively and keep our folks busy and in the field doing their field services with what might lower our cost over time. And we try to encourage our team to take a long-term time horizon evaluation of those costs and not just the upfront acquisition price. And that is sometimes hard because, even in this moment, it's the $4.5 million that gets our attention, but the actual cost of ownership of these vehicles will be determined by how long we can stretch their use and how much consistent uptime we have with them and how productive they are.
Thank you. Yes, I think that the long-term gains, the investment over time, getting the best return on what we're investing in. And I would just say, given supply chains, I would hope that we consider the equipment that we're using to make sure that we're evolving with the way that the market is shifting.
There's got to be some analysis data on that, right? I mean, one, I would imagine we do it internally ourselves, but then also there should be some broader benchmarks that would help us.
What I want to add to that. Here comes Jason. Go ahead, Jason.
No, sorry to interrupt.
Well, I was just going to add for an example with our police department. I know when they go to their various seminars and they hear about the latest trends in police vehicles, they know what's working in their industry. So when each year when they evaluate which vehicles they want to replace, they might still stick with the same manufacturer, but get different equipment based on what their peers have said. And I think that's done across the board in various departments. They know the best kind of equipment that's out there due to their associations that they're a part of. Because just like finance officers, we get together once or twice a year and we discuss the best ways or the most latest ways and innovations in government finance. The same thing about fleet. And so I think we do that internally, with our peers and going to these meetings where we learn about different types of equipment that's out there. Jason, you want to add to that?
No, it's a constant ongoing doing research to find out if the Fords are right or if the auto cars we're running are right. But on the police side, the Ford Explorers seem to be tracking great. There's not a whole lot of repairs that we have to do on them. Other than Dodges we've had in the past, we've had to do a whole lot more repairs on them. So we found that the officers and everybody liked the room of the Explorers and the accessibility of parts and accessibility of my technicians working on them. If we try to jump around from manufacturer to manufacturer, then I've got to teach all my guys more broader ranges instead of focusing on one specific manufacturer. It's not saying that if we don't find a manufacturer that is better, we won't pursue that option. It's just at this time, the manufacturer we're sticking with right now is better of the options. And to go back to the mileage and stuff like that, which everybody's car, if you think 100,000 miles nowadays is nothing on a car, but you take city driving where it never leaves the city limits, that 100,000 miles, when you get to the hours that engine has on it, you're looking at more of a 200 to 250,000 mile vehicle then at that point. And then everybody knows once you start getting to 200, 250,000 miles, you're going to start having a whole lot more problems. Where some of these cars on this list that's up for replacement are 2010, 2011s with 90, 100,000 miles on them. Those we're patching them together just to keep them going at this point.
That's really helpful, Jason.
It
And I would suggest maybe in when we go forward next time on this, that we get a full schedule of the vehicles that are being replaced. I think we've seen that in the past.
It is in your
Isn't
council
there?
package.
I don't have my glasses, so
Okay.
I'm struggling to read.
Councilwoman.
What we did do, we listed the year of the vehicle that's being replaced, and then the
I look
condition.
forward to reading it when I get home.
Yeah.
It's still small.
Well, we tried to
Well,
expand
you
it.
can enlarge it on the computer. I did.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I just say thank you? That is an exact data point that I'm looking for. So 100,000, but it's constantly running. So 200,000 running hours. That communicates the need for replacement. And I think just speaking for myself, some of those key data points and running hours, and when you start to see those constant repairs, that maintenance, skyrocket, it is time to change it over, and that's where, we are going to save money in the long run. So I would enjoy having some of that information included in what we read and digest to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah, just for an example of this, one of them on here, 618 for an Explorer. As the cost of life today, we spent $46,000 just to repair it. So we can buy that car.
Should have asked for it.
And we won't be spending another $46,000 next year, or at this point, that car is going to start costing anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year just to keep it going. So there's a limit to where you gotta.
I know we have maxed out this view, but the landscape view with that extra Excel line, that would be a lovely column to see. Thank you.
Are we playing catch up with any of our equipment? I mean, we catch up on a lot of things over time. I mean, are we pretty current with a cycle?
Some of this is catch up, but not all of it. But some, I mean, the schedule that we have, I've seen it here over. Oh
yeah, I'm bringing them out of the woodwork.
We're gonna keep going on and on.
Great question. So, Jason did a great job. Dennis does a great job. If you look at Public Works for the most part, and those other city departments on there, everybody at home will say, well, like Jason said, 100,000 miles. You can break them into more or less four criteria. You've got the Public Works, the larger pieces of equipment. You've got police, you've got fire, and you got everybody else. Okay, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but as far as catch up, I think y'all remember COVID was just so hard on us. To Jason's point, we constantly look at different platforms because we have to. Because, some of these vehicles now, these pieces of equipment, like now a side loader, if we don't order it now, it's 18 months out. Mm-hmm. Going back to the tiller for the, for the fire department, right? That was what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
3 years. So we were sitting there, after, waiting for it to come in 3 years. So it's almost like they say, it's almost like come as you are kind of things. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows, and I know we're going to get into the weeds on this, but however, there are certain, certain things that we're going to have to do long term with that. And we're trying to make sure, to your point, we're trying to expand those platforms out. A vehicle with the police department, yes, to what Jason said, it's not that it's got 100,000 miles on it. That thing is constantly running with the electronics. It's never going to be cut off at all. The savings that we're trying to foster in Public Works too, with what he's trying to do, would be for our side loaders. The side loader itself, that mechanism is moving hundreds of times, if not thousands of times a week. And what we'll say is, to that point about equipment, if you go back and you look at faces and so forth, the faces, especially like let's say in Public Works, so just the machinery, the efficiencies that we have to see in the equipment is paramount because we don't have as many people anymore. Mm-hmm. So we have to constantly look at that, to that efficiency part of, doing these things that we have to do. Solid waste, green waste, and those things. As everybody remembers, in Helene, I think somebody looked at some of our equipment, some of our older dump trucks, and so forth, and they look, they don't look the best of it. However, he's done a great job at keeping them in place. The other main thing now is just the, regulations. You're going to get to learn these terms about, everybody knows about diesel now, right? And DEF and stuff like that. You got to have these additives in order for these newer pieces of machinery to work. These newer pieces of machinery it's a computer. It's not like you open up the hood anymore and you've got a carburetor you're working on. You got to be a computer electrician now. You got to be all kinds of things to do those things. They're doing the best they can with that information that they have and those materials they have. Some of these things we have to keep in place because we can't find parts. So we'll cannibalize the older ones because it's not worth putting it on gov deals, selling it for $1,200 when he can go in and he can cannibalize some of these older pieces of machinery in order to get the parts because we can't get a part within, weeks as well. So it's not that it's complex, but it's really different than, to your point, than it has been over the years now. Equipment replacement is a moving target that we're trying to make sure that we're looking at because we know we have a finite, we don't have a finite amount of resources to devote toward that, but we're trying to do the best we can with the information that we have. And I think Jason and Dennis and Chris and everybody understands that, and we're trying to find a healthy medium in order to accomplish that.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion.
Thank you.
And I'll second. That we authorize the city manager to execute and deliver the equipment lease purchase agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. Great. Thank you. Oh, glasses. We're at item 11, public hearing. Ordinance to provide the annexation of property located at 2191 Country Club Road, which is identified as parcel ID 7-17-06-071.00 Spartanburg County tax map, as well as the property located at 2251 South Pine Street. Good. Presenter, Fredlin Frazier, Planning Director. Ms. Frazier.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The matter before you is an application for an annexation or petition for annexation and a rezoning. You may recall this application came before you probably sometime last year as part of a development agreement. So this is the next step in advancing that project. The representative for that project, Lat Purser, Jack Levinson, is here if we have any additional questions regarding the specifics of the project that's being proposed. But tonight I'm going to walk you through the annexation component and the rezoning and a little bit on the actual proposed project. So where are we now? Sometime last year, about September, we had the planning information session. You may all know that all rezonings must go through a public information component, include that. So we conducted that on September 10th. We had two adjacent property owners that did attend the meeting and provided comments at that time. Both were in favor of the project. We did not receive any other information at that time in terms of from the public. The following week, we held the Planning Commission meeting, and they actually voted unanimously to move forward with the annexation and the rezoning of the property. So that brings us to where we are right now, where this petition is before you for consideration, and if it moves forward tonight, it will come back to you on the 27th for adoption. A little bit about the project. This is at the corner, kind of at the corner of Country Club and South Pine Street. What you see there is the extent of the full proposed project. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into where the proposed annex parcels are located for you. But as you can see, it's not going. Where are we? There we go. As you can see, when you get in this section of the city, things get kind of wonky in terms of our boundaries. So it's kind of difficult to figure out what's in the city and what's not in the city. But if you look closely here, that area that's shaded kind of grayish, that's actually in the city, and everything else that does not have that shade to it is in the county. So where you see the two stars, those are the two parcels that are under consideration for annexation and rezoning to be combined with that larger parcel right there in the middle. So here you go. Everything that you see that has a diagonal or hash lines on it it will consist of the overall project. The yellow are the parcels that would be annexed. And one thing about this project, if you look at the southern edge there, the applicant has also agreed to provide an easement to the city to provide a gateway sign there. So we consider this area of the city certainly a gateway into the city. So the fact that they are willing to provide some area for us to put a sign there, welcome to Spartanburg, or whatever that may read, we welcome that. A little bit about the zoning. As I mentioned, the primary parcel that's in the center there is B3, and of course the other two that are in the county are unzoned. We're proposing the B3. With all rezonings and annexations, we always like to go back to what we call our guiding document, which is a comprehensive plan. So in this case, as you can see, this area is identified as an infill growth sector, and what we're doing here aligns with the uses that you would want to see in here. In that regard, we're looking at, in the future, mixed use and a little more residential along this corridor. And this specifically aligns with what was proposed and what's in our future land use map in the comprehensive plan. Now, the other part of any annexation and rezoning is the analysis in terms of the 5 criteria that any petition and application needs to meet. So the department, the staff, as well as the Planning Commission are responsible for making sure that an application meets this criteria. And I will say that in this case, this petition does meet all of the criteria. I won't read through all of them, but I'll just briefly touch on them, I guess is the best way to do it. The consistency or lack thereof of the comprehensive plan, I hope that I've demonstrated that this ties directly to the comprehensive plan in terms of the future land use that's been identified there. Compatibility with existing zoning, the primary parcel is B3, which does accommodate residential, and I can touch on that a little bit more about why we feel moving forward in that regard because of the pending code update, which we anticipate a broader or more flexible zoning classification here. The challenge is our zoning code just does not give us the flexibility right now for townhomes, and so we do a lot of workarounds. So instead of trying to do the workaround now, with the zoning code rewrite, we'll be able to really look at how we incorporate mixed use on this site or in this area, and it can serve as a buffer or transition to the residential that you see adjacent to these properties. Markability of the property, we feel as though, of course, with a townhome development, we don't see any hindrances or challenges there in terms of the marketability. In fact, having these other uses in terms of retail, there's the Ingalls that's adjacent to this area, as well as other neighborhood services, really will promote that type of mixed use, even though we don't have that mixed use zoning in the area. And finally, the availability of water, sewer, stormwater facilities. This is always reviewed at the site plan level with the with Spartanburg Water, but we are confident that there is sufficient infrastructure in place to support the development. A little bit about the project, and I think you've seen this before, but just to kind of remind everyone, the proposed site plan here, and Jack is here if you want more detail, but there are 4 different models that are being proposed here, all of which, 92 of them, and the renderings and the actual design has not changed since you saw that, I guess, sometime last year, but 92 townhomes. Because this is part of a development agreement, it also incorporates 10% workforce housing. So that really concludes the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And of course, if you have questions specific to the development, I will defer to Mr. Levinson for that.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, not necessarily a question. I just want to note that Lat Purser, Jack back there, Lat Purser, this is what would be the 3rd project in the city of Spartanburg behind the Fitzgerald and the aforementioned boxcar.
Exactly. They've been active in our community for some time now, with the most recently the boxcar and, as you mentioned, the Fitzgerald.
Right, and I mean, they've been great assets to our community, and want to thank them for their continued investment in Spartanburg, and we're really excited about this. And I assume this will be part of District 4, so I'm looking forward to welcoming that to the district.
Any other comments? Sure.
Fredolin, do you mind going back to the map that showed the 2 parcels that we're going to annex? Yeah, sure, right there. I know that the one next to the one on Country Club Road is not a part of this particular project, but did we investigate trying to annex that at the same time? Because it's just kind of sitting out there all on its own now.
Yes, and I believe that was the intention of the developer, trying to get that entire up to the corner. Unfortunately, we did not, or they did not have a willing
Okay.
property owner. Is that correct?
But the answer is the existing property owner does not wish to be annexed into the city at this point.
Understood.
I would say
Okay.
that that's the case.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we open a public hearing.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. That opposed? The way the public hearing works, we will have 20 minutes each side to speak on behalf of this project or speak against. No one person can take up the entire time. No one person can take over 10 minutes to speak on the project, the proposed project here. So with that being said, do we have anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project? Anyone that would like to speak in favor of this project? Do we have anyone that wants to speak against this proposed project? Anyone willing to come forth to speak against the proposed project? Okay.
Make a motion.
I know he's coming up.
Against?
I just want to make a statement.
Sure.
It's not directly against. However, Spartanburg City and Spartanburg County are running out of nature preserved areas, our trees, our green spaces and everything. Even though the city and the county are doing a good job about bringing parks and everything, we're losing a lot of our wildlife area. So this is part of wildlife area. I'm not saying I'm totally opposed to it, but I think it's time that we start looking at building permits and our infrastructures and everything a little bit more closely, the aging of it and everything, and just keeping that in mind. I'm not, like I said, I'm not against it, I'm not for it. I just want to make sure that's.
Hear you loud and clear. Thank you for that. Anyone else that would like to speak against?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Ayes have it. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the rezoning as requested.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any that oppose? Unanimous. Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Fraser.
Thank you.
Black, Purser, and Jack, thank you guys for your investment in Spartanburg, really. Thank you. Mr. Story, item 12, staff updates.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members, I've got a couple of topics to cover, and then I'll certainly welcome any questions that you have. The first is we have experienced we've got a very busy downtown, and when I say we've got a lot going on downtown, the first thing people think about is construction. But I also wanted to point out that we're coming out on the heels of an extraordinarily busy weekend downtown of people. Our best guess is that some 15,000 plus folks attended the barbecue festival, and about 12,000 folks attended baseball over the weekend across 3 baseball games. All of that worked well in and amongst and around the construction, and I think it was a really successful weekend with tremendous amount of cooperation and tremendous amount of vibrant activity in our downtown. And so it's just something to celebrate, and a strong indicator that the downtown changes are not dissuading anyone from visiting our downtown. In fact, we're having a tremendous spring so far in terms of downtown visits and activity. Also want to just again thank the private group who puts on the barbecue festival, the Hog Fest. In the process of putting on that great event, they raised tens of thousands of dollars for mobile meals, which is a hugely important community service. And so we're glad that not only do people come downtown for entertainment and fun and dining and shopping, there's good work being done for community causes in that process as well. So thanks to everyone who is making this busy downtown spring happen. The second thing I want to talk about is 3 weeks ago we've made a recommendation about the clock tower, and established today is sort of a target for completing 3 weeks of public input on that proposal. And I wanted to share that we have received 137 emails to clocktower@cityofspartanburg.org. All of them in their entirety will be emailed to you. And of course, that count could have changed by 1 or 2 since I pulled those numbers, but they'll all be accessible to you in your entirety. We also plan to put them online, but in the course of our discussions for that, we realized that some folks may not have anticipated that their email address would be out online or that kind of thing. So to keep folks from getting any kind of spam or or anything like that. We're going to redact any personally identifying information from the ones we post online. In other words, won't change any of their content, but just so their address or email address or that kind of thing would be blacked out on those that we put up online. But in case folks who are interested in this issue want to read the other 130 something that they didn't write, they'll have opportunity to do that. We suggest, we're not seeking any action associated with that tonight. I just wanted to put that in front of you and encourage you to dig in and take a couple of weeks to read that content. Anytime we ask for public comment on a high-profile proposal, we get a variety of responses, and we did in this case, and they run the gamut. There are a number that are supportive of the proposal. There are also a number that are critical of the proposal, and there was also a number of folks who have suggested that the county courthouse should be the site, and I just wanted to comment briefly on that. As has been previously discussed, the city doesn't own or control the county courthouse campus, and we haven't received any indication from the county that the clock tower is something they want there on that property, and from all respects, it is their property, and so I just want to be transparent in regard to that question, since it was the subject of a number of those emails. But again, lots of substantive feedback that will be available to you and to the public beginning tonight or tomorrow morning to read about the clock tower. Certainly welcome any questions that you have about that, but I just wanted to give those two updates. And again, not seeking any specific additional direction at that time, but just want to provide you and the community opportunity to read what folks have had to say about what has been presented.
Thank you. We look forward to those emails. We're going to move on and have 5 minutes for council updates. Yes, sir. Before 7:30.
5 minutes.
Councilman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't sure Chris was finished. We have had quite a meeting this evening, lots of topics. It's great to hear so many public comments and just updates on what's happening in the community. I would like to bring attention to April is now Fair Housing Month, Child Abuse Prevention Month, and Earth Month. Our Power, Our Planet is Earth Month's theme this year, and it's definitely come up with green spaces being mentioned, native plants. So just putting in mind that we are now officially in spring, and this is also a time to really focus on how as a community we're making a safe, nurturing, and engaging community for our children and families here. So, and I think the ask that I have of everyone here tonight is, Hannah did such a wonderful job talking about services, partnerships. Please pick 2 people in your life that live locally and talk about the services that are available. Talk about the reality that children, mothers and children are the majority of the homeless in our population, and that we have services not only for the people that we see and interact with, but the people that we don't. And that there's an opportunity for us to, if all you have the ability to do time-wise is share that information, you're a part of making that difference. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Smith.
Thank you all for being here. I hope I'm not embarrassing her by saying this, but happy birthday to Ruth Littlejohn tonight, Councilwoman. Yes, give her an applause.
We're gonna sing at the end.
Oh, were we? Oh, okay. Well, we could still do that. But Ruth is a very special person to me and my family, and one of the things I think respect most about Ruth is that she is always quick to apologize when she feels like she needs to. That is something that I think a lot of folks don't do anymore. Their pride gets in the way, but Ruth is a humble woman, and that really shows, and I've learned a lot from you. So glad to be up here with you. I've had some questions about, and maybe Jay can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but on Thursday, April 16th, SCDOT is going to have a drop-in meeting about a road diet. If you're not sure what that means, it means what you think it sounds like, where you take a road that's a little bit too big and you make it skinnier. And East Main, right where our city, new city offices are, right by First Baptist, starting right there at Converse Street, all the way down to East St. John Street. That really wide part that goes by Mary Black Foundation, that goes by St. Paul's Catholic Church and First Baptist, where we've had a pedestrian death this year already. That road is really too wide. And SCDOT is, are they officially dieting it, or they're just considering? They're asking for public comment. So if you think that that road should be made a little bit smaller, they're proposing a 2-lane road with a turning lane and bike lanes on either side. You can drop in to the Mary Black Foundation, which is actually on that section, from 4 to 6 on Thursday, and offer your opinion. I think that's a really important way that we can get involved. That's a road that the city does not control. We cannot make those kind of decisions, so we need to engage with our state partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brown.
I don't have anything to add except for happy birthday, Ruth. May you have many more.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Councilwoman Sally.
I just want to say thank you all for coming out, and hope you had a great Easter. Thank you.
Councilman Foreman.
Yeah, I just want to wish Ruth a very, very happy birthday and reserve all my other comments for Dennis.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you, August, and thank you for your comments. I got several calls over the weekend about the South Converse area being a historical district. Is it or is it not? And if many of you remember years ago when I was the president of our neighborhood association, I got all of the signatures and we worked for the South Converse neighborhood to become a historical district. However, we got approval during the same time that Beaumont Mills did. Ed Memmott asked me if we could put ours on hold and move forward with the South Converse neighborhood. Well, Beaumont was approved, and it is on the state, it's got registered now. Ours never came back up, because I just kind of forgot about that. But I got calls this weekend that was stating that folks were thinking that we were on the register, and we are not on the register. And the ones that are Hampton Heights and Beaumont Mills on the local, and on the national is Converse Heights, because those are the ones. I just wanted to say that because I wanted people to know, the ones that don't know that. And then I had a very dear friend, I'm sure that she was a friend to many of you who were listening and watching, Gloria Hunter. Was a dear friend of mine for over 50 years. I did not know she had passed until Friday passed, and she passed on the 4th. I did not know it, and I got a call from some people that said, did you know that Gloria passed? Because I haven't heard you say anything. And I said, Gloria who? And they said, Gloria Hunter. I said, when? And they said, on the 4th. I was not good for anything the rest of the day. I did something, and I want to apologize to Dr. McDaniels, and I would do it publicly. I did something that you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to put yourself down front, because you wait to be invited to come down front. I was so hurt and so filled on yesterday when I went to her funeral. I just wanted to be as close as I could.
That's fine.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You okay? Yeah, all right.
So I put myself on the second row from the front, and I should not have done that because I think I took the space of somebody else that was supposed to sit there. And I do want to apologize to Dr. McDaniels because you don't do that. You don't put yourself down front. You wait to be called down front. So I want to publicly apologize to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth, Miss Gloria Hunter was a dear friend to quite a few here in Spartanburg. You know, we were both at the funeral yesterday, a real close friend of my mother's. If you didn't know, Miles with the Mayor on the 25th. It's not the third Saturday, it's actually the fourth Saturday of this month, April the 25th. And you heard Strongtown Spartanburg will host it. We will be at Burnett Park at 9:00 a.m. that morning. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming out. And once we ask for a adjourning vote motion, we will sing happy birthday to Ruth Littlejohn. So do I hear a motion? I know we're going to.
Make a motion that we, after singing happy birthday to Ms. Littlejohn, we move into executive session.
All in favor? Any that oppose? And you guys in the audience can join in with us. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ruth. Happy birthday to you.
And happy birthday to Kevin on yesterday.
How old are you? No.